It is November 26th and it's day 51 since the war between Israel, Hamas, and Hezbollah has broken out. Let's take a first-hand look into Israeli newspapers. Let's read the Hebrew headlines. 26 Israelis and 15 foreigners were released from the hands of Hamas, miyadei Hamas, le'achar shiv'a shavuot, after 7 weeks. 26 Israelis and 15 foreigners since Friday and Saturday. And you will see one of the girls that was released hugging her grandma, and her mom is in the back. Also was released. ידיעות אחרונות. אחרי עיכוב של שעות, after hours of delay, the second batch of the hostages has arrived home. המשחק האכזרי של חמאס, the cruel game of Hamas. Nerve-wracking delay, nerve-wracking expectation because of the delay of Hamas. The 8 children and 5 women were supposed to be released in the afternoon yesterday, but they were released by Hamas finally near midnight. It reads, Ein iskaot kalot, there are no easy deals. And says that the drama yesterday leads to a few lessons learned. One of them is that Hamas is still strong and that Sinwar is leading and controlling Hamas still, even after 7 weeks of fighting. Another lesson learned is that the agreement of the hostage deal is not completely sealed, and there may be more nerve-wracking dramas in the future with the release of hostages. Like today, there's supposed to be release of more hostages, and we hope it will go well. Anachat Ravacha, a sigh of relief. Israel b'milchama, Israel's at war. In a significant delay, the second batch of hostages is in Israel. And says in the end of 7 nerve-wracking hours of crisis, finally 13 Israeli hostages were moved from the Red Cross, and they began their walk to the hospitals, or their way to the hospitals in Israel. According to agreement, 8 Israeli children should have been released, and they were, and 5 women and 4 foreigners. Behind the scenes, Qatar and Egypt were mediating and were brokering this deal. But Hamas grossly violated the agreement because one of the terms was that no child will be released without their mother. And yesterday, one of the child was released without their mother, one of the children, and her name is Hila Roteb. She was released without her mother. It reads, Bruchim habaim habaita, welcome back home. And these are the hostages that were released last night. Sharon Avigdori, Noam Avigdori, Emily Hend, and Shoshan Heron, Shiri Weiss, Noga Weiss, Alma Or, Noam Or, Hila Rotem Shani, Adi Shoham, Yahel Shoham, Neve Shoham, and Maya Regev. Next reads, Israel b'milchama, Israel's at war, Shichrur HaChatufim, the release of the hostages. And the next few pages are stories about the release of these specific hostages, specific stories about them and the moments of their return. This one is about Ohad Munder. He celebrated his 9th birthday in the captivity in Gaza, and he was released together with his mom Keren and his grandmother Ruti. His grandfather Avraham is still in Gaza. But his friends are so happy to have him back, and we see here pictures of him with his family and his friends. And we see here Daniel and Amelia, mother and daughter, from the Alonik family that returned. And here we read about Doron, the mother with 2 young children, a 4.5-year-old and a 2-year-old that returned on Friday. Their husband, Doron's husband, is so happy, and he says, though, that he's not completely happy. His joy is not complete until the return of all the hostages. So there are over 200 hostages left in Gaza, over 200 hostages still in Gaza. Margalit Moses, she's 77, she was released, but her husband is still in Gaza. So with this release, some families are still torn apart, even with the ones that came home. And just more very heartwarming and emotional stories and pictures of the release of the hostages. And it's important to say that most of the hostages are in good health. They're in good health. Here's Safta Yafa. It says, Safta Yafa Khan. Safta Yafa is here. She's healthy, she's beautiful, and she's a lioness. Yafa is beautiful, and Yafa is her last name too, so it's a play on words. Right down here we see the vigil for the rest of the hostages that are still in Gaza. It says here in the circle, Yoter mi-200, more than 200 Israelis are still kidnapped in Gaza. 10,000 people were in the protest yesterday. The daily segment that is still very relevant about the hostages. Here is Tal and Gal, a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and their 2 friends that are holding their pictures, and the friends say that they cannot wait for their return. They really want to play together. The next article is about the IDF in Gaza. This is an article interviewing the soldiers and the forces that right now are in ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. It says Israel's at war with the soldiers and commanders in the depth of Gaza, just a moment before the ceasefire. But they're saying, let us finish what we've started. We started the good work. Let us finish it. We are ready to go once we get the command to go. And here we see a picture of them in Gaza with their faces blurred. We see the damage in Gaza from aerial explosions. And here's a civilian home that was used by the terrorists, by Hamas terrorists, like so many other civilians' homes in Gaza that are used by the terrorists, and also are places that are keeping ammunition there as well. The next headline reads, Hatzad hasheni shel haiska, the second side of the deal, because in parallel of the return of the Israeli hostages, the terrorists who are in jails in Israel are being released, the prisoners are being released. These are female terrorists and of minors who are terrorists as well. And they're received with celebrations in the East Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria, with Hamas flags, and they're all very supportive of the horrific massacre that happened on October 7th, and they're thanking Hamas. They say, I love Gaza, and I'm proud of Def and Sinwar, the 2 senior terrorists of Hamas. Here on the left, it reads that Palestinians executed 2 suspects in the charge of them cooperating with Israel and helping Israel finding terrorists in Gaza. These are the main headlines of the Hebrew newspapers. For more stories, please go to All Israel News. There are lots of stories, lots of news is going on. More to come. Today, there's supposed to be a 3rd batch of released hostages. Follow us on social media and YouTube. This is Rotem again for All Israel News.